Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we have a decision on when the Gender Reform Act will be either accepted or completely thrown out. The decision will be made at a 3-day hearing in September. It's been announced that it will go ahead, the court case will be heard, but Lady Haldane is going to be hearing it. She's going to be the judge. Which is possibly a little bit problematic, and it may give the government grounds for, the UK government that is, grounds for appeal should they lose. They're not likely to. The general consensus is that they won't, but should she come down on the wrong side, it will immediately, of course, go to appeal, almost instantly go to appeal, because of something that Lady Haldane has said previously. But we'll take a look at this now. We'll get the details, because this is ultimately the D-Day for the Greens as part of the government, because they are so inculcated with this gender reform bill that if it doesn't go through, they may stamp their tiny little green feet and walk. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it? But we'll have a look at this now. So, gender reform D-Day for Humza Yousaf and the nationalist government, and it's set for September. The case will be heard by Lady Haldane, who has previously ruled that the definition of sex was not limited to biological or birth sex, which goes contrary to the massive majority of people in this country and around the world. That will be the immediate area for appeal. There's also the fact that the UK government are pushing through plans now to verify and change the wording of the 2010 Act so that it is explicitly for biological sex. Otherwise, you've got no differentiation of sex. You've got no protection. And would Lady Haldane like a man just to wander into her when she's changing? And she's going to complain, there's a man in there. And then he goes, no, I'm a lady, I've decided. And then that's it. And that's what she's got to roll up against. And so whatever happens, there's going to be a massive problem. If she rules in favour of the SNP, there will be a massive constitutional crisis, and I believe actually it could end up with devolution being cancelled. It's as serious as that for the UK government. But anyway, we'll look at this. Humza Yousaf will face D-Day when it comes to gender reform in September. It has been confirmed. The First Minister is challenging a decision by the UK government to block Holyrood legislation that would have simplified the process of legally changing gender. It follows concerns that the new laws could impact on the UK-wide Equality Act. In a boost to Mr Yousaf's case, the 3-day hearing will be heard by Judge Lady Haldane, who ruled in 2022 that the definition of sex was not limited to biological or birth sex. In what became known as the Haldane decision, she judged that in the context of the 2010 Equality Act, sex referred to a person's sex recognised by law and not simply their biological sex. The Scottish Courts and Tribunal Service confirmed the case will be considered at the Court of Session in Edinburgh from September the 19th to the 21st. Now, the other thing, of course, is that they've got to get past one of the basic tenets here, which is that Section 35 has been used, and it is perfectly legitimate for Section 35 to be used. And even if Lady Haldane comes down on the side of the SNP, the UK government, and in terms of what recognising what a man and a woman is, the UK government still has the right to use Section 35. Otherwise, the Scottish Parliament is breaking its own rules of existence. They've had to agree to the rules in order to form the Parliament. And so, if they then want to go and challenge the rules of devolution, then that means that devolution at that point must stop and the Parliament must succeed and end until such time as that case is heard. So it becomes very, very complex. Anyway, the judicial review was sought after Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack utilised Section 35 of the Scotland Act, the legislation which established the devolved Scottish Parliament, to prevent the Gender Recognition Reform Scotland Bill from gaining royal assent. And the bill was pushed through the Scottish Parliament in December, despite concerns it would make it easier for biological men to access women-only spaces, much to the chagrin to just about every woman on the planet. And also, these men, which we know from the government's own figures, are more likely to be sex offenders, are not gender dysphoric, because it's such an actual rare event, and we know that they're definitely not gender dysphoric. In fact, it's guaranteed under the Gender Recognition Act, these men cannot possibly be gender dysphoric because they have not seen the psychiatrist, and therefore until they are diagnosed as gender dysphoric, they're not gender dysphoric, which means they're either men wearing woman face for fetishistic reasons, or men wearing woman face for predatory reasons. So you takes your money and takes your pick. Are they predators or are they fetishists? Either way, they've got no business being in a lady-only space, especially one where there's young girls. And I do hope that a few, shall we say, non-hospitalised sex change operations do occur. Off with the ghoulies. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf vowed during the SNP leadership contest that he would challenge the use of the Section 35 in court. Scottish Greens had threatened to withdraw from the Butte House Agreement if the new First Minister failed to take action, and therefore showing right from the beginning, right before he even became leader, that he was beholden to the Greens and that they are actually the government of Scotland. Both Kate Forbes and Ash Regan said they did not think it was right. They did not think it was a fight. That the Scottish government could win, and the chances are they can't. Now, you see, the problem, as I say, the problem isn't the Section 35. That is a legal right. They're going to challenge it in court. Now, regardless of what Lady Haldane says about gender and sex and everything, that's not the fight. The fight is the Section 35. She can't deny that Section 35 is the law. She cannot deny that Section 35 exists to protect. And she cannot deny the fact that the very essence of the fact that the Parliament of Scotland even exists is because they agreed to the Scotland Act, which contained Section 35. So what does she want? Will she come down? Chances are 99% that she'll come down on the UK government side, that Section 5 is completely correct. But if she comes down against and goes the other way, then first of all they have the appeal straight in, and then secondly, of course, because she'll have been seen to be biased because of her earlier statements, and then secondly, of course, all they have to do is implement the same law, the Scotland Act, and repeal the Scottish Parliament. Everyone's a winner. Anyway, the legal challenge is expected to land UK taxpayers with a bill in excess of £1 million. We can bill this to the Scottish Government. The Nats have looked to frame the issue as an attack on devolution, despite Section 35 being part of the legislation used to create the Scottish Parliament, which they agreed to. Now, if they didn't like the rules, don't play the game. Anyway, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and the UK government has said it had taken very careful and considered advice on the issue. He added the UK ministers had concerns about how Scotland's Gender Recognition Act would interact with reserved powers, about the operation of the Equalities Act, as well as over the protection of women elsewhere in the UK. So, for example, in, let's say, England, the law was such that, let's say, this woman's space, safe space for woman, let's say a DV unit or a crisis centre, was reserved under English law explicitly for biological women only. And a man from Scotland comes down with his either a little fetishistic mind, or he wants to be a bit of a predator, and he wanders in. Now he's going to say, but I'm a woman in Scotland. And they say, yeah, but you're not in Scotland. Out. And then he goes, but that's not fair, blah, 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 and starts quoting Human Rights Act. And they say, no, if you want to be a woman, go north of the border and be a woman. But you can't be a woman in England. And so here's the problem. If you have something, for example, he's got a passport issued in Scotland saying he's a woman, it will not be recognised in England if he's a biological man. So therefore, and these are the problems. They haven't thought these problems out. And that is why Section 35 has been used, amongst many other reasons. Number one, of course, the protection of women and children from predators and fetishistic mentally ill men. Anyway, The legislation, which is opposed by many women's groups, just about everybody in fact, as well as high-profile campaigners like J.K. Rowling, would allow people to self-identify and obtain a gender recognition certificate without a medical diagnosis. So that's why they can't be gender dysphoric, because they haven't seen anyone who's capable of writing that up and confirming that they're gender dysphoric. So therefore, as I say, anyone who doesn't have a psychiatric excuse is a fetishist or a predator, without exception. The issue was brought into public focus in January when double Ara of women, Isla Bryson, was initially remanded in a female prison. The scandal paved the way for Nicola Sturgeon's resignation. Yeah, that was the excuse given anyway. Just weeks before, Parliament had voted down a Tory amendment that would have helped prevent biological males trying to legally change gender in order to avoid male prisons. There's a simple thing about prison. Open up the pyjamas, have a look down the front. If there's anything there, they're men. In they go. Doesn't matter what they insist on calling themselves or what they wear. And any man who walks into a changing room where my wife is will soon be a woman. Anyway, I'm going to round this off and come up. There you are. So we have this now. We know what the P in SNP stands for. They now are truly the party of the perv, the pedo and the predator. You can take your pick now what P you choose. But any party that stands there and is insisting that fetishised predatory men have access to women's spaces where there may be young children as well, and they're backed up by the Greens, another party of pervs and pedos, it just goes to show that the priorities are firmly set within that party. The people of Scotland need to send the message that they do not want this to happen, and there's only one way they resist. They vote these people out completely. Ask everyone who comes to the door the next election, do you support allowing predators into women's safe spaces? And if they say no, say, oh, so you voted against the Gender Reform Act. If they're SNP, you know they haven't. You know they've voted almost to a man for it. But that's basically it, isn't it? That's who they are. It's who the SNP are. They're the party that wants to make sure that women and children are simply the playthings to the mentally ill men, the predators and the pervs of Scotland. Well done, Humza Yousaf. You're the perv in chief now, it seems. And I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. For God's sake, guard your children. And if ever a man walks into a woman's safe space, turn him into a woman. Goodbye.